What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So if I sound a little different today, it's because yesterday I actually lost my voice and been working to get it back. But it's Friday, so we're going to push through to the weekend. We do have some interesting stuff to go over today, which does include Nintendo issuing a copyright strike and takedown, but for something you wouldn't normally expect. Also, we are going to be talking about a couple of games that appear to be in development at Ubisoft, one of which is a bit surprising because it's another Prince of Persia game. And we're also going to be going over EA and FIFA, as it looks like they may be competing here in the near future. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Fortnite, specifically the no build mode that they had introduced. It looked like this was going to be like a temporary thing from Epic Games, maybe to test the waters and see how interested people would be in it. Well, it looks like that mode could be permanent going forward. We can see this posted up with a couple of data miners for Fortnite, where they say the no builds LTM that will be available after 8 days will be called Solo No Build Battle Royale. There's other versions of it too, but I took this one to show you the name of it. Then we also have HypeX saying, seems like Epic is planning to keep a no building modes. Here are some signs and proof with a screenshot there. There's separate no building modes that they can enable anytime after this limited time event ends. They changed most loading screen tips to say in modes with building enabled, implying that there would be ones that don't have building enabled. And you know, I'm curious from any of the big Fortnite fans out there that are still really into it, let me know if you enjoyed the no building mode as opposed to be able to just throw up walls and ramps all over the place, because I am curious how that's going over in the community, since it appears anyway that Epic is realizing, wow, people actually like the no build mode. Also, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is out today, and it actually marks the I'd say a big step for the Kirby franchise going into like full 3D. And it looks like it wasn't easy to do. We can see this post up over on VGC, where they say Nintendo and HAL Laboratory struggled for around 2 decades to make a 3D Kirby game. This was in a new interview that was posted up. This from Kumazaki saying, we kept hitting walls we couldn't climb over. From 2000 on, our game prototype shifted to a trial and error approach. We played with unconventional gameplay angles through comparatively smaller games in the series as a way to further explore the concept of a Kirby-based 3D platformer. We still had plenty of unique challenges to overcome, though. Some in HAL Laboratory even felt that only 2D games should count as real Kirby games, so to speak, so we weren't able to reach a point where we could deliver a complete 3D platforming mainline Kirby title. That's interesting, because I mostly figured it was just they were trying to wrap their heads around it, but it sounds like some people within HAL didn't even like the idea of Kirby being anything other than a 2D style game. It's great that they finally got there with the Switch and Kirby Forgotten Lands, because it looks like a lot of people are really enjoying it with reviews, and yeah, some people getting it early, but I am excited to check it out myself. I think I'm going to post a video up giving my initial impressions as I play through the first hour or so. Oh, and if you're looking for something to play this weekend, maybe try something new, it looks like Xbox will have a free-to-play weekend for a couple of pretty good games. You can see this card posted up over on the news.xbox.com site. There are 3 games that will be available free to play this weekend. I don't know if you'll be able to 100% them, but you might even be able to beat something like Far Cry 6, I guess, in the 3 or 4 days you'll have access to it. That will be Thursday all the way until Sunday, March 27th, basically at midnight as we tick over into Monday. But we have Lost Judgment Before We Leave and Far Cry 6. So pretty cool. You can technically just dive in, try it out, and if you like it, of course, you can then buy it and your save data will transfer over. In fact, I believe most of them are even on sale right now. So just throwing it out there, if you're looking for something to play this weekend, you got a couple to check out for free. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo being Nintendo and just copyright striking all kinds of stuff. We've become used to this, right? If there's a really cool ROM hack that pops up for like Metroid or something like that, we're like, hey, that's really cool. It's probably going to be pulled down in a couple of days, so I should probably download it. Nintendo, no stranger for sending out the cease and desist order. But those are for like games and ROM hacks and stuff. This one was a bit odd. I was even surprised by this, but take a look over on Twitter. This was posted up by Comfort Food VG saying, new scan, Super Mario 64 Complete Clear Guidebook. Here it is, the infamous Mario 64 guide with the incredible 3D sculpture landscape scenes. finally, I can bring this to the internet to enjoy with my 600 DPI scans. And this is really cool. This is the part that people don't necessarily realize, maybe if you're a little younger. One of the reasons I really liked, yes, the guidebooks, but also the manuals that came with our games. There were some very creative pieces when it comes to like artwork or even just backstories for different characters. I mean, look at this. They have like sculptured landscape scenes. How cool is that? And it was uploaded in a manner where it was really easy to see, super high resolution, all of that. There's only one problem. If you go there right now, the Internet Archive reads, items may be taken down for various reasons, including by decision of uploader or due to a violation of our terms of use. This item is no longer available. Now, if we go back to Twitter, we can see Comfort Food VG with an update. Nintendo America forced Archive to remove this. Then my first mirror went 404, but I've uploaded again here. And, well, that probably won't last too long, although they also have a torrent that'll probably get bounced around then by users. Now, since we can access a couple of these images just from Twitter where it's posted up, we're gonna get a nice zoom-in shot here. We'll break the law for a minute or so, Evan, if you want to go ahead and get a nice zoomed-in shot of that landscape. How cool is that, though? And it's unfortunate because this is something that's just really fun to have access to. And I guess Nintendo was like, nope, that can't be up for whatever. I don't know, maybe they're selling them. I highly doubt there's any monetary value for Nintendo with this guidebook. Like, I don't think they're out there selling it, even posting it up on their website. We have had times where Nintendo will just post a guidebook up. We've had it for the Super Nintendo Classic System, and people would go through them, and it's kind of cool to have the access to that, but this is something that's just lost to time otherwise. So it's Nintendo being Nintendo. Technically, yes, they have rights to be able to have this stuff pulled down, but it's like, come on, really, Nintendo? We talked about the list of priorities yesterday, right? With the Wii and the DSi shop, and like, then we see this pop up. It did take them a couple of weeks to pull it down, but who knows, maybe Internet Archive was even like, really, you want to pull this down? It's that big of a deal? Apparently it is, because then they followed up with Dropbox, and now at least it's getting bounced around as a torrent, so there is a backup and a way to get to it. I have a feeling that Google Drive link will be gone pretty quick too. But there is one thing you can count on from Nintendo, and that is the old cease and desist. Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts that gives us a week-to-week look at physical game sales, and it looks like we at least have an indication as to how Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins did, which we can start here with the top 10, starting with Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. That is on the PS4, 28,944. Then we have Pokemon Legends Arceus, 23,067. Elden Ring, 19,487. Then Stranger of Paradise, again, this one on the PS5, 17,905. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which, by the way, Mario Kart 8 has actually seen a bit of an uptick across all regions with this downloadable content that they are releasing with this roadmap. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is basically unstoppable for Nintendo at this point. Minecraft there, 9,755. Then we have Gran Turismo 7, Smash Bros. Ultimate, Triangle Strategy, Mario Party Superstars to round out the top 10. Moving over to the hardware, Nintendo Switch OLED model at the top, 55,675. The Switch Redbox model, 19,165. Then the Switch Lite, 10,657. PlayStation 5 at 13,971. Then the digital edition, 2,997. I'm still seeing supply constraints pretty much across the board for the PS5. Then we have the Series X at just under 3,000 systems, and the Series S, 618. The new 2DS LL at 287, and then the PlayStation 4 with 10 systems. So the only thing really worth mentioning in this entire list is Stranger of Paradise, and people were looking at that and saying that it is disappointing, and I gotta say, it kind of is. Like, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the remaster, did like double, I think even a little more than what we're seeing here with Strangers of Paradise, but I guess you can look at it and see that the digital side of things continues to grow, so we'll wait for Square to tell us, but based on what Square's been saying with a lot of these games, most of them are disappointing. I have a feeling Stranger of Paradise is also going to be disappointing when it comes to sales. I just don't think it blew up the way they were hoping. When we initially heard of it, it was like, whoa, they're gonna do a Souls-like Final Fantasy game? And unfortunately, I just don't think it came together like they were hoping. There are some issues with that title, to put it mildly, but we'll wait and see what Square has to say. So far, though, not the best start for the latest game in the Final Fantasy series. Next up, let's talk about a couple of titles that are reportedly in development at Ubisoft right now. Remember, there were reports that there is a Ubisoft event that should be happening ahead of E3, so I'm looking towards May, and it sounds like they could have all kinds of stuff to show. But let's talk about the two titles that I'm actually pretty happy that we're starting to hear about. One is Immortal's Fenyx Rising getting a sequel, which I liked Fenyx Rising. It was Assassin's Creed without it feeling like way larger than it needs to be. Like, it didn't have that Ubisoft fatigue setting in, much like Assassin's Creed will, where you end up with over 100 hours to get through Valhalla and 100%, or at least come close to it. And they're adding more content. No, Fenyx Rising didn't take itself seriously, and it just felt more arcadey overall. So really cool to hear that. It is in early stages. That's one I wouldn't expect to see anytime soon, but what about a new Prince of Persia game? Because that is what Tom Henderson is mentioning here, alongside of that Sands of Time remake, which sounds like it went back in the oven for a while. So now I'm starting to wonder if we're going to see that anytime soon, considering this other Prince of Persia game being a 2.5D that is inspired from Ori could be on the table next. Says additional details on this title were slim, but I hope to be able to reveal more shortly. Nonetheless, it does seem that Ubisoft is actively working on a second Prince of Persia title. I love the idea of this, by the way, because it goes back to like the original Prince of Persia games, where it was kind of this side-scrolling game. It was a bit slower. It wasn't as fast-paced, I guess you could say, as like Sands of Time, and then later on with like Two Thrones, Warrior Within. But it was always an interesting setup with that, like that 2D style, and I think it'd be really cool if they went back to that with that Ori inspiration. Not every game has to be a massive 3D epic style game. It can be these smaller titles, and that's something I would like to see from Ubisoft. So not every game feels the same. Like, we don't need every game to be this big open world style Ubisoft fatigue game. 2.5D Prince of Persia sounds pretty cool. The fact that we'd be getting more Prince of Persia, I think, is just a win overall, especially if Sands of Time needs more time. Hey, show up with this 2.5D Prince of Persia and change things up a bit. In our last bit of news, let's talk about EA and FIFA. Now, we know FIFA licensed the name to EA, and they make all of these yearly soccer or football games, and for the most part, people seem to enjoy them. Yeah, FIFA Ultimate Team is a whole thing with microtransactions and loot boxes, but it continues to chart very, very well in basically all parts of the world, and is like the go-to for most people, since Konami can't just like make a good soccer game without falling over themselves with eFootball 2022 or whatever. But now it looks like we could be seeing a split here, as EA doesn't want to pay the extra money for the FIFA license. We can see this posted up. This one was over on PC Games, but it is referring to Jeff Grubb on Grubb Snacks podcast, saying EA Sports is dropping the FIFA license and changing the title of their football game to EA Sports Football Club. At least that's the word from one reliable industry insider, and it does match a trademark the company filed last year. And EA's already mentioned this. They're like, do we need FIFA? Is it worth an extra $1 billion to have the FIFA name? And you know what? I don't 100% know one way or the other, because EA seems to believe people are buying this for the gameplay, for Ultimate Team, all of that. Not necessarily because it's called FIFA. But I will say, when I was working at stores, people would walk in and they would say, give me the new FIFA game, not give me the new soccer game or football game. No, they specifically knew that brand. So yeah, that branding has a lot of value to what EA is making. However, I have to imagine that EA was kind of weighing it out, and they're like, could we get away with it? Yeah, if we lost some sales, would it hurt us as much as having to spend an extra $1 billion or so to retain this like FIFA name and license? I guess in their mind, no, and they'll take a shot at building up another title, which I guess if EA is at least there in that like overall title in the box, might help them. Now for FIFA, it sounds like they are going to pursue creating their own soccer game. Like that's the part that I'm curious about, because I don't think FIFA is just going to show up and be able to make it themselves. They would get a studio or a publisher to create the game, and I have no idea who they would get. I mean, I guess you could get 2K, but they don't really have any experience that I know of making a game on the level of what EA's been making. Konami, like I said, they keep falling over themselves with eFootball. That's like one of the worst rated games on Steam. And looking back, I did notice that Sega had made a few soccer games on the PS2. They did like, Virtual Striker, or Virtual Soccer or something. So could they get Sega? I mean, I guess, but they would probably want a large publisher and a large developer. And the only one I can think of them defaulting to is indeed 2K. So interesting stuff to keep an eye on here and what FIFA has in mind going forward, because it looks like we could see some competition there, or actual competition, not eFootball and Konami, when it comes to your yearly soccer game. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, which April video game release are you most excited for? Look at that, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, 46%. You know, I saw the previews for this game. It seems like the next generation Lego game, and I do really like Star Wars, so I get the hype behind this one. And then we also have Switch Sports, which that's like right at the end of April. That's almost May, but obviously bowling's there, so a lot of excitement on that one. And then Chrono Cross, since there are probably a lot of people who have never played it, and it'll be the show 22. Hey, you know what? It's another baseball game, but yes, I am actually very curious about the Skywalker Saga. That's probably the one I would vote for here, although I will admit Switch Sports will be a lot of fun just towards the end of the month. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Xbro saying, I'm so happy for Kirby. He really deserved a better experience from what he had in Star Allies. Now, don't get me wrong, Star Allies is still good, but it was a little lackluster in what HAL Labs was trying to achieve. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to people who are big fans of Kirby, like Ant Dude, and he explained it as, it was fine. Like, just fine isn't, I think, great for a series that's been kind of stagnant for a while, but like, Ant Dude's talking about it on Twitter for Forgotten Lands, is like mind-blown excited for this title. So I think it's the fact that they're taking such a chance with the Kirby franchise, going in a completely new direction, and if it pays off in terms of sales, I mean, I don't think they go back to 2D Kirby really ever again, unless it's for like a smaller release. Otherwise, 3D Kirby is probably the new direction going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike, leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, was Nintendo being Nintendo, copyright striking and pulling down a guidebook. What do you think about that one? And then also a 2.5D Prince of Persia game inspired by the Ori series. Do you think Ubisoft could pull that one off? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, hopefully sounding better for Newswave.